Hello everybody, the Great Dino Ranger here again, back with another review. Continuing with the Safari line. Last video we did the Saltosaurus, and this video we're going to do one of my all-time most anticipated releases, newer releases from Safari, and that is the Nanuqsaurus. So this is a species of Tyrannosaur that I believe was from Alaska or Canada somewhere. I know right up there. Famous, for always being portrayed in the snowy environment, both in like the Dino Dana show, Prehistoric Planet, and just overall, a lot of paleo art always depict this dinosaur in the snow. So it's really cool. It's definitely one of my favorite Tyrannosaurs, and this is something I always wanted to get a figure of. I'm still waiting for a figure from Mattel of a Nanuqsaurus, but in the meantime, we finally have a model, a scientifically accurate representation of a Nanuqsaurus in my collection, and that is good enough for me, so I'm happy with that. And this one is a 2024 release, so this is a newer figure, one of my most anticipated ones. Like I said, I really like Nanuqsaurus, and I'm really happy to finally have this awesome Tyrannosaur in my collection. Just right off the bat, just by looking at it, I'm in love with this figure. The sculpting is great. I love the colors. Nanuqsaurus is always portrayed in like a white feathery coat, much like a polar bear, which, funny enough, Nanuqsaurus does mean polar bear lizard. So that's really cool. However, I really did like the representation of Nanuqsaurus in Prehistoric Planet, where it wasn't white in color, but kind of like just a darker browns and blacks. Kind of matching like the forest floor or the forest environment you get in mountain environments. So that was really cool. But there's something really cool about having white feather on a Tyrannosaur. It's basically like the polar bear of the dinosaur world. And the sculpt is amazing. Again, this is the sculptor who did this is definitely the one that sticks with like the smoother texture on these figures, unlike the traditional other kind of sculpt that Safari did prior, where it's always just like really heavy on the scales. This one's more of a smoother texturing, which kind of makes sense because this one's covered in feathers, so it is what it is. I like it. I like all these different sculpts for all these different figures. And the rest of the sculpt for throughout the entirety of the figure is really great. So as you can see here on the head sculpt, which I think to me looks fairly accurate. It's got that famous Tyrannosaur-like skull with the little ridges or crest above, or at least in front of the eye ridge. And I like how the in front of the skull here has like these really large scales. They're not tiny, they're like really large scales. I don't know why, but I really like that on dinosaurs. And you got some smaller ones around the eye region. That blue eye with the black pupil just pops so well. It looks so good and contrasts really well with the rest of the cooler Arctic colors. The nostrils are sculpted very nicely. The teeth are sculpted nicely as well. I really do like them a lot. Sure, they're not very sharp, but they look individually sculpted, not like a row of just jagged edges. No, they look like individually sculpted teeth with huge gaps in between each tooth, and it just looks so good. The tongue looks really good as well. It looks like another separate sculpted piece. Yeah, it just looks really great. I like the way the teeth looks. The head itself looks really great. And you got some more of the larger scales here around the skin, the exposed skin area. And speaking of exposed skin, here we got the fingers right here. Mostly just the digits are shown, not the whole hand, and they look pretty nicely sculpted. It's very, very fine, but you can definitely tell what Safari was going for. Here at the foot, looks really nice. You can definitely tell this one's a lot more smoother in texture with all the other compared to all the other Safari figures. Like the scales aren't very prominent here around the foot. They're just kind of like dots sculpted in, and it has like a smoother texture. You got those large ridges on the foot as well, on the toes, and it kind of goes up there. I like that a lot. The claws and the toes look nice and sculpted as well. Some more nice detail on the underside of the foot as well. And you got a nice dew claw sculpted in right there. Same with the other foot. Looks pretty much identical to the other one, just in a different position. You can see more of that sculpted texture. Same with the other foot. You can see the dew claw there as well. So it looks really great. And that's pretty much it in terms of the scale. Everything else is feathers, and the feathers are beautifully sculpted on this Nanuqsaurus. They look really great. Very similar to kind of like what you see in a polar bear a little bit, but there's like a feathery look to it because obviously it's a dinosaur, you know, more bird-like in some ways. So I really do like that a lot, and it pops depending on your light source, and the shading kind of brings out the sculpt, and I really do like it a lot. You got some finer little bit of feather sculpting here at the edge of the, or at least this part of the skull, which is where the white is kind of going, and it looks really darn nice. And you got some more of that feathers kind of going down the arm, looking great. I like how the feathers just kind of drip down, kind of similar to kind of like what you see like on the back of an emu or a cassowary. They're not sticking up, they're just kind of going downhill and like on a slope. And the feathering kind of goes all the way down to the ankle, so they look really nice as well. And it goes all the way to the tip of the tail. Even on the complete underside, just some nice sculpted feathering. So yeah, it looks really nice, and I like how thick the tail looks too, and not super skinny, because obviously it's covered in feathers, but also, you know, I always see this in a lot of like shows, but also paleo art. A lot of dinosaurs that possibly had feathers on the tail kind of make it look more of a thicker build to it, and not super skinny. I really like that. So I like the kind of rounded tip at the edge of the tail right there. The paint job, like I said, I really like the paint job. It's very classic, you know, when it comes to Nanuqsaurus, just the white polar bear color scheme, and the white feathers just they pop really well. I'm actually really surprised that the paint job isn't based off of the one shown in Dino Dana, where that one was pretty much the same, except instead of these brown stripes, it was just black dots, almost kind of like a snowy owl. So that's interesting they didn't do that route, but I like this paint job too. I like the gray for this exposed skin area, kind of separates that. I like that. The blue eye is awesome. I like the yellowy beige color for the teeth, and the pink for the inside of the mouth. Looks really nice. And I like too how the white kind of goes onto the face, but weirdly enough, you can see some more of the lined textured feathers here at the all the way to the top of the skull, and sadly those ones aren't painted. So that's probably the only thing I really, wish was kind of fixed on this figure. I think the same thing is on the other side too. Maybe not as bad, but it's very noticeable on this one. The claws are painted in like a black color. They look really nice on the feet, as well as the dew claw. On the hands, the finger claws are not painted, except for this one. That one's just like a black dot. That almost kind of bugs me a little bit, how this one only has a black dot and the other ones don't. But I mean, it is what it is. It's hardly noticeable depending on where you're looking at it, and if you're looking at it up close. But I don't know, if there was a way to get that off so at least it matches the other ones, that's fine. But yeah, it is what it is. And then you got these this brown color going at the top of the body, goes all the way down to the tip of the tail, and then kind of stripes down. And it works really well for this dinosaur. The colors are just great on this one. However, I do think that maybe the brown could have been dry brushed to blend into the movement of the feathers a little bit more, instead of looking like it's just been painted on, which I know it probably has been. But if it had a little bit of like that blending texture, kind of blended in the feathers, it probably looked just a teensy bit better. But I'm not going to complain too much about it. I'm just glad to have a Nanuqsaurus in my collection. There isn't a whole lot of muscle definition coming through the sculpt because it's primarily covered in feathers, but I like the folds in the skin right here where the head is turning. I love that. That looks so good. Like I said, it adds to a lot of the movement of these figures. The stance is pretty good, stands pretty nicely. Of course, it's in a tripod position. The 2 feet are on the ground, and the one hand is kind of balancing it out. So whether you like it or hate it, I like the stance the way it is. It's fine. These ones aren't articulated anyway, but I think it's fine the way it is. Yeah, I really like the pose. The pose is pretty cool. It's almost like kind of crouching or maybe defending its territory from other Nanuqsauruses, maybe. I don't know. But overall, a really great figure. For comparisons, we'll compare it with the Safari LTD. This one's the 2014. Wow, that was a really long time ago. Pachyrhinosaurus. Now, I don't think this is the exact same species of Pachyrhinosaurus that would have encountered Nanuqsaurus, but based off of Prehistoric Planet, I thought it'd make a really good comparison just to have a Pachyrhinosaurus with a Nanuqsaurus. And like I said, might not be the correct species. This one's based off of Lacustae because of the horns on the frill right there. But they look really great together. Positioning these two in a snowy environment would just be chef's kiss. Really good. Another thing we'll compare it with real quick is the Safari LTD 2015 Eutyrannus. I almost forgot the name. Eutyrannus. I decided to compare it to this one because this one's another feathered tyrannosaur that Safari did. As you can see, this one's definitely a different sculpt, or this one has been sculpted by a different sculptor than what you get on here. And I guess the feathers on this older sculpt look pretty good too, because the paint doesn't always sink into the sculpt, so it kind of gives it like that really hair-like feather texture. So I really like this one too, but this one is just as good. But they look really nice together. These snowy environment feathered tyrannosaurs look really great next to each other. So I really do like these a lot. And the Nanuqsaurus is actually slightly more bulkier and I think maybe longer. Yeah, I think maybe longer or just as long as the Eutyrannus. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about the Nanuqsaurus, the Safari one. I highly recommend this one for any of you that just collect dinosaur figures or Safari. I really like this one a lot. It's one of my favorites. So yeah, really great figure. So I hope you guys enjoyed this review, everyone. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys again for the next Safari review.